Garegin Khachatryan, Armenian. The 17th of September 1975 to the 2nd of September 1995. Was an Armenian sculptor, artist, and freedom fighter. Biography. Garegin Khachatryan was born in Yerevan, the 17th of September 1975. Son of Rafiq Khachatryan, Khartrafo, who was a sculptor of the Union of the Artists of the USSR and Armenia, and a young, 13 years old, and brave participant of the National Liberation Movement of Armenians. He was a soldier of Armenian National Liberation Legion, Azgayan Legion and National Legion. From 1988, aged 13, to 1994 when he was 19 years old. He was a Spetsnaz and paratrooper in a volunteer battalion, Artsev 4, Eagle 4. His father Rafiq Khachatryan was in the headquarters of the Independence Army of Armenia. Garegin Khachatryan, graduate of an Armenian high school, as well as of art college in Yerevan. He was a volunteer in the self-defense forces and had a good training in volunteer troops as a special force and paratrooper. He was a brave defender of the borders of the Republic of Armenia and a volunteer participant of self-defense operations in the border areas of Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. He was awarded with the Medal for Bravery of the Republic of Armenia. Freedom fighter and composer David Amalian, in late September 1995, dedicated a great song to Garegin Khachatryan. He was a direct descendant of the House of Daniel Bek of Sasan, Province Sasan or Sasan of Western Armenia, second half of the 18th century, and Khachatur Bek of Mush, Town Mush of Western Armenia, first half of the 19th century. Encyclopedia of Karabakh Liberation War 1988–1994. In Armenian. Armenian Encyclopedia. Yerevan 2004. Pages 429–430. Television programs of Armenian TV channels. 1998. August. Television programs of Armenian TV channels. 1998. November. Television programs of Armenian TV channels. 2006. May. Television programs of Armenian TV channels. 2006. September. Television programs of Armenian TV channels. 1998–2006. Hazinva. Armenian Soldier. The official weekly of the Ministry of Defense of Armenia. Issues of 1998–2008. Sasan Grigoryan. Musanerichal Resan. v. 3. Yerevan. 2010. Pages 67–67. In Armenian. http. Ru. Hayaz. Info per %, D0%, A5%, D0%, BO%, D1%, 87%, D0%, BO%, D1%, 82%, D1%, 80%, D1%, 8F%, D0%, BD_%, D0%, 93%, D0%, BO%, D1%, 80%, D0%, B5%, D0%, B3%, D0%, B8%, D0%, BD_%, D0%, AO%, D0%, BO%, D1%, 84%, D0%, B8%, D0%, BA%, D0%, B%, D0%, B2%, D0%, B8%, D1%, 8. 7. Garegin Khachatryan in Yandex. Ru. 1. Less than iframe width equals 300, height equals 72, frame border equals 0, src equals http. Video. Yandex. Ru. iframe. Gurgen 99 7th D9x7 I1 VQ 6.1114, greater than less than, iframe greater than. 2. Karabakh Liberation War Encyclopedia. DJVU 429. 3. Karabakh Liberation War Encyclopedia. DJVU 430.